The term velocity, as it implies, talks about the forward movement or the accomplishment. In the Agile project management, velocity calculations are used before the sprint and after the sprint. So before the sprint, now let us say in our total product backlog, if we have, let us say, 50 features to be developed, that is the total number of entries in the product backlog if it has 50 features. Now, how many sprints we should plan? So for that, what we should be doing is first is you do a story point estimation for the 50 features in the product backlog, and put together, if it is coming to 100, we know that the total story points for the entire product backlog is 100 story points. And if you make an assumption like every sprint of 30 days, if we can complete 10 story points each, then in order to accomplish 100 story points, we need to run 10 sprints. And if the sprints are happening sequentially one after the other, when we do 10 sprints, we are talking about 10 calendar months. If 10 calendar months is not agreeable, then if you have to compress the duration of the product development, then we may have to think about parallel sprints. So this is how we start a project. So planned story point per sprint is 10, and we have to accomplish 100 story points. So we need to run 10 sprints, and if the sprint duration is 30 days, then 10 sprints means we are talking about 10 calendar months. And if you want to shorten it further, we need to run parallel sprints. So this is one application of velocity calculation. So planned velocity is the number of story points we anticipate to complete in each sprint. So based on this planned velocity, we can define the number of sprints and the number of sprints. That is one aspect of it. Then during the execution phase of the project, now let us say take sprint 1, we have planned for 10 story points, and so planned velocity is 10 story points. At the end of the sprint 1, we have accomplished only 9 story points. Then we say the velocity of sprint 1, the actual velocity of sprint 1 is 9 story point. That is a reflection of the team's capability as well. So we plan for 10 story points, accomplished 9 in the sprint 1. Then how much should we plan for in the second sprint? Because our capability is only 9. So as a Scrum Master, I should ensure that in the second sprint, the team is committing only to 9 story points. And if their productivity has really gone up, they plan for 9 story points, which may get over in 20 days time within the sprint, and the remaining 10 days time they will do some extra work. So planned story points will become 9 and accomplished can become 11. So in this case, the actual velocity of sprint 2 is 11. Then if that is the case, in the third sprint, how much should we plan? We always go by the accomplished velocity in the previous sprint. So previous sprint, the velocity was 11. So in the third sprint, I'll plan for 11 and I accomplished 11. So my velocity of third sprint, actual velocity of third sprint becomes 11. So likewise, after every sprint, we get a data point of this velocity, actual velocities. So after 2-3 sprints, we can always take an average of these actual velocities, and that is a true reflection of how much the team can really accomplish. So the average velocity, if you can take after every sprint, we get a new data point, we can work out the actual velocity, And in the subsequent sprint, we always go by the velocity of the previous sprint. That is a must. The second thing is, after each sprint we get a data point and we get a refined average velocity. So the sum of the story points to be accomplished, that is the balance features to be done, the sum of the story points or the balance features to be done, divided by the average velocity, that will give us an indication of how many sprints we need more to complete the release or the product itself. This is a true implementation or true empiricism within the Agile project management. We talk everything with numbers, plan velocity, actual velocity, the number of story points to be accomplished, the number of story points to be accomplished divided by the average velocity. That will give me an indication of the number of sprints to be done to complete the product milestones. So initially I may plan 10 sprints. I may end up doing 12 sprints, or I may complete the product in 9 sprints also. So as the project progresses, these velocity data helps the team's performance to be very, very predictive in nature. So any implementation, when they talk about, if they tell me like they're following Agile, the first question I ask them is, what is your velocity of the last sprint? And if they know it, that is an indication that their implementation is a good implementation of Agile. But if they are unable to give me the velocity, I know that the crux of agility is missing. Because if your average velocity keeps on increasing sprint by sprint, that means you are on the right track. And at some point in time, it may stabilize. So if you want to gauge this continuous improvement, velocity and predictability, how many more sprints are required kind of thing, without velocity calculations, it is impossible. And to calculate velocities, we need estimation, we need sprints. So the whole process must be in place. So this is the engine, or this is the meter which tells us, which gives us predictability. Thank you.